Hi there, and welcome to Our Weekly Craft, a source for ideas, inspiration, and fun for crafters. I'm Sarah White, Chief Maker at OurDailyCraft.com, coming to you from that meme about girls wearing plaid looking like lumberjacks. But I'm trying to bring the fall vibes. And today I want to talk about holiday crafting, specifically making gifts for other people and why you shouldn't do it. I know that it's like mildly controversial because we love making stuff for other people, right? Which is fine. But I feel like sometimes we get caught up in the idea that we're supposed to make stuff for other people. And this is part of a larger discussion about selfish crafting and why that's not a thing. But I think we get caught up in the idea of like, oh, I learned to crochet this year, so I want to crochet everyone I know a scarf, or I want to make sweaters for all my kids, or, I learned to sew, so I'm going to make teacher gifts this year for the holidays or whatever. And that's fine if you go into it with the right spirit, I guess, is what I want to say. So I feel like a lot of people do not deserve your handmade things. Anybody, not just yours literally, but like anybody's handmade things. People who are not crafty do not appreciate the time and effort that goes into making something. And so I feel like I've just like through the years gotten to the point where I'm just like, it's not worth it to like make something for somebody who's not going to fully appreciate it. And so like if somebody asks me to make them something, I'll consider it. But if it's not asked for, if it's not somebody who I feel like is really going to appreciate it, if it's not somebody who I feel like has earned it by being my friend or whatever, which is sort of harsh, but like you gotta earn to have me make something for you, because I'm busy and I would rather make stuff for myself or people who I know are going to appreciate it. And so like even with my family, like I hardly have made anything for my husband, and the things I've made he never wears. So I'm like, well, okay, that's just like a sign that I'm not going to make you more stuff, right? I'm not going to keep trying to find the thing that you're going to wear. He's hot natured, and so like I've never knit him a sweater because he would never wear it, and it's not worth my time. I've knit him a scarf that I think he's maybe worn once. I've made him a balaclava that he's worn once. My daughter's better, like, but even with her, I'd like ask, do you want me to knit you a sweater this year? And she'll be like, eh. And then I'd be like, well, okay, if you're not like deeply enthusiastic about it, maybe I am not going to spend too much time, worrying about whether I should make you something or not. But if she were to come to me with a specific request for something, I would absolutely drop everything to do it. Like her Halloween costumes, obviously, I'm doing whatever it takes to make. That I did knit her a Harry Potter style wizard robe one year for her birthday. She was doing a Harry Potter birthday party, and she also wore it for Halloween that year. And that was not, I don't think that was specifically asked for, but I knew it was something that she would use because we were planning this Harry Potter party, and then that ended up being her Halloween costume as well. But and I think I wrote a post once that probably does not exist on the internet anymore about like how it was sort of like a flow chart in words of how to determine whether someone is worthy of getting a handmade gift. I mean, it a little bit depends on what you're making too, and the amount of time that goes into it. I used to always knit a heart, this little heart pillow that was on About. I don't think it's still there, but maybe it is. If I can find it, I'll link it in the show notes. But I would always knit one of those for my daughter's teacher, starting when she was in like daycare, right? Like, so for years. And I didn't do one last year because she didn't. I asked her if she wanted me to, and she said no. And now, as she's older, she's in 7th grade, she has a lot more teachers, so I'm okay with like, how do you pick which teacher gets the thing? I knit her teacher a scarf last year instead of a heart, actually, so I was still making something. And so I'm always willing to do that for teachers because, you know, they get lots of weird stuff. And her teacher last year was like on morning carb line duty. So I was like, she needs a scarf because it's going to be cold. And, you know, that's a thing that she'll actually use. And I never saw her wear it, but that's another story. But, you know, the hearts, it was like, it takes, you know, maybe 2 hours to knit it and sew it and stuff it and all of that. And so even a teacher who was not like super appreciative displaying it in their room or anything, you know, I felt like the couple hours of effort that went into that, it was okay as a gesture of goodwill toward that teacher. You know, if you're making a batch of candles or a batch of soap, I've done soap for teachers before, you know, candied nuts, decorated pretzels, things like that that don't take, like you can make a bunch at once and it doesn't, each individual one doesn't take that much time. That I'm more open to than like knitting people socks or even scarves, really. I mean, the scarf is a long project. It's not like over in a day most of the time. So I guess that's part of it. It's not just a straight no, but considering the amount of time that the thing takes and weighing that with the like what's your expectation for appreciation is, because like if you knit someone a sweater, you're gonna be like, I want them to like freak out, right? I want them to be like, oh my gosh, you knit me a sweater, I can't believe you did that, that's so awesome, I'm putting it on right now and I'm never taking it off again, right? And that's really not the kind of reaction that most people are going to have to any knit thing. A possible exception to that is other crafters, right? Because they know, like, if you make a crafter a blanket, they're going to be like, I acknowledge the time and effort that went into this and I appreciate that. But the average person is like, how long could it take to sew a quilt, right? But it takes a long time, and they don't know that. If you're a better person than me, I guess maybe you're fine with like not having expectations when you give gifts. But if I have taken the time to make something for someone, I kind of want there to be, I want them to use it. I want them to, you know, acknowledge the effort. Like I said, I want them to make a big deal out of it. You know, I want them to be posting on Instagram like, look at this amazing thing my friend made me, right? And the vast majority of the time stuff like that does not happen. So through the years, I have gotten less and less willing to make things for other people unless it's a specific ask or a specific need. Now, an exception to that is when I have friends in cancer treatment, I will make them something unasked for. I make blankets, shawls, comfort items. You know, I made one a knit wig. It's on Knitty. It's called Hollow Wig, and it's a hat that's, I mean, it's basically a head covering, but it has like long in the back, so it looks like hair, kind of. So that's like my one exception, is that I will knit for if you're going through a big scary medical thing. I will knit something for you unasked for. But the vast majority of the time I do not knit things for people for holidays. A couple of years my husband used to be a manager, and he had 6 or 7 women in his department. They were all women. That's not, you know, I guess one year he had a man too, but and so a couple of times they got like knit scarves. It may have been scarves twice. I want to say maybe it was fingerless gloves one year and scarves one year. But that was back like when I worked at About and I was knitting so much, and I like had basically, I just went, here are the scarves that I have made this year. Feel free to take some. So it wasn't like specifically knitting for those people. In general, I am against like the planning, saying, okay, I'm gonna knit something for all these people, you know. Another exception, I knit, and that was only like 3 pairs, but for the women in our family, one year I knit fingerless gloves. And the reason I did it was because I like really liked this pattern and I wanted to knit it again. And so I made one for me and I made one for them and I made, and it was really fast and easy. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can make that for everyone. And I have trouble sometimes with gifts for people. I mean, like, my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law, and so in those cases, like, knitting something is easy, but again, I don't know that they use them, and I would rather spend my time making something that I know is going to get used and loved, and so that means I'm making it for myself, right? Or my daughter, because she does wear the sweaters that I make for her, and if I just went, hey, I'm going to knit you a sweater, I'm sure she'd wear it, but I like to have her buy in and be like the last one that I made, she tends to like cardigans. And so we went to the yarn store, we picked out yarn together. I got her approval on the pattern and all of that. And so, I like to have that sort of creative conversation with her about how it's going to go. And then I just do the physical labor of making it. And so that's like his effort. And so it's not just let's go to the stash wall and I'll make you a sweater out of whatever is here that I like. I want her to want it. So there has to be some enough enthusiasm for her to be like, yes, I want you to make me a sweater, and here's the color I want it or whatever. And I haven't gotten that this year, so I haven't knit her anything yet. But anyway, this is a quick one because it's just I have tempered my beginning statement of don't ever knit anything for anyone, or not make handmade gifts for people. But I would say, don't feel obligated to make gifts for people just because they know that you can knit or crochet or sew or make candles or whatever. It does not mean that you owe them a handmade thing. And any making that's done with expectations like that, or obligations like that, where you feel like I have to make this for these people. I need to make something for my coworkers. I need to make something for the teachers. Just because they know that you're crafty does not mean that they are entitled to a handmade gift from you, I guess is the way I'm trying to say it. And if you can go into it with the spirit of, I want to make this thing. I want them to know the level to which I, am willing to spend hours working on a thing and thinking of them while I'm doing it, even if it is not received with the level of enthusiasm that I would receive such a gift with, then that's fine. Like I said, I'm not a great person in that regard. I want to be like fawned over. I want people to feel impressed and to like act like it's a big deal, because it is. Like, it's hours of your life to even just knit something simple or crochet something small. It's time and it's resources and it's your skill and it's taking the time to think about what that person would like and what colors you should use and all of that goes into it, that nobody who's not a crafter really thinks about. They're just like, oh, it's almost on the level of if you bought them something instead of making it. You don't get like that increased level of gratitude or enthusiasm from a lot of people. And so in my years of crafting, that has just been like, I have lowered the number of people who I'm willing to craft for anything that takes much time at all. And like I said, if it's a couple hours, maybe. If it's, my daughter's advisor who she's going to be with for the next 6 years at her school, well, yeah, okay, maybe he gets a scarf this year. But then again, it's like, but if they're together for 6 years and that's the teacher who gets the special gift, then what do I do for 6 years, right? If I start with a knit scarf, where do we go from there? So maybe he doesn't get a scarf this year. Maybe he gets a scarf when she's a senior, if he's still there, right? When we've gone on this journey together, and not when we're starting this journey together. But I guess that all of that boils down to, and we've been talking about this whole year, right? Mindful crafting is like taking the time to think about like who is really worthy how much time am I willing to put toward a gift for this person? What if it's not received in the way that I would like it to be received? Because you don't want to get like resentful of people, right? Because you spent all this time on something beautiful made just for them and they're just like, oh, thanks. And you never see it again, right? And so I think that's a big part of it too. Maybe that's part of my like, whoa with that is the, never seeing it again and not feeling like it was appreciated. Kind of gets to me. It's not resentful, that's like a strong word, but like mild annoyance with people who accept a handmade gift and then don't, aren't gracious and don't use it and all of that stuff. So, but I want everybody to go into the holiday season thinking about what they're doing and what they're making and who they're making it for, and if that person is worth it, and if you have any sense that you would rather be making something for yourself or your children or your spouse, if they are a person who could receive the gifts of your creativity better than your coworker would, by all means, limit, make something for yourself instead. Rewatch the one a couple weeks ago about what do you need from this season, because the lack of stress and any stress you cannot add to yourself at that time of year is better too, right? So you don't want to be like, it's October, Christmas feels a million miles away, of course I can knit or crochet or sew or whatever, something for all my 12 coworkers. There's no problem. You make one, you get into something else because you're like, Christmas is so far away, and then it's like Thanksgiving and you're like, there's no actual way I can crochet 12 scarves in the next 3 weeks, right? And there's no, like, I don't want you to pile that onto yourself, because there's no expectation from your coworkers that you're going to knit them all scarves or crochet them all scarves or whatever. If there is, that's your fault. Like, you should go into it not with any expectation, not suggesting that you would be making gifts for all your coworkers, right? But I know maybe that is where all this is going to. It's just like, don't pile that on yourself. If it's not something that, like, if the making itself is not going to give you joy, because we can't have expectations about how our gifts are going to be received. And that's true if you buy someone a book or if you knit them a pair of socks. So, if there's the possibility like that you're going to feel resentful, or like you've wasted time, or like I could have been making something for me that I would enjoy instead, by all means make for yourself instead, and do not waste your time and energy and like heart on making something for someone if just the making of it and releasing it into the world is not enough for you. And if it's a thing that's going to stress you out, like if it's somebody who, my mother-in-law's not like this, but if it's like your mother-in-law and they are like super perfectionist and they're going to spot every flaw in that quilt you made them, then by all means do not make them anything. They do not deserve it, because, that's not the way to approach receiving a gift like that. So yeah, just give it some thought before you commit, even in your own mind, to making holiday gifts for people. That is all that I want you to know and want you to do right now. So if you are planning holiday crafting, mine is all for myself and possibly a sweater for my daughter. And I mean, it's not holiday related at all. It's just in the rest of the year. If you have an approach to holiday crafting that is different from mine, or you have a list of people who are worthy of crafting for you, I would love to hear about that, because I think different perspectives on this whole making for other people thing is valuable. But the older I get, and the more I just want to make stuff for myself, because I mean, I want to enjoy it too, right? Like, that's the other danger, is like if you make something that you really like and then you're like, oh, I was going to give that away and now I don't want to. well, maybe you don't have to, but you know, so that's an aspect of it too. But I would love to hear your approach to holiday crafting. I don't really have anything fun watching, reading right now. I just started earlier this week reading the Satanic Verses, which I have always meant to read, and I got like on the wait list for the book after Salman Rushdie was attacked I guess it was a couple months ago now, at the festival in New York. And so I've decided that was like, it's a good time to go ahead and read that. It's very hard to get into so far. I'm about, I don't know, I'm like 50 pages in. And I'm having trouble with it, but you know, it's good to read hard things, and I'm hoping that I'll like get in the groove. It's like when I read Ulysses, I was just like, just read it and like see if you can get something out of it. And it's hard to make yourself do that as an adult, and then when you're not doing it for a class or something, but I'm trying. Because it is a book that I've always wanted to read, and I'm sure that it is worthwhile to do so. It just feels like a slog right now. I have been watching, and I'm almost finished with How to Change Your Mind on Netflix, which is a Michael Pollan documentary series based on a book of his called How to Change Your Mind, which is about psychedelics. So there's 4 episodes. I think there's only 4 episodes anyway, and they cover, you know, peyote, mescaline. Well, peyote and mescaline is the same thing. LSD, MDMA. And what's the other one? I've lost it. But anyway, different psychedelics and the history of them and how they are used in modern medicine, like how MDMA has been used and is, you know, on the cusp of being approved as a treatment for PTSD, and the amazing help that it is for people who have really severe PTSD. And it's just fascinating, and to think about, you know, how this country could be different if we hadn't had the drug war and all of those substances being, you know, prohibited, I guess, illegalized in the 70s and 80s, and what, you know, if researchers had been able to use them, what a difference that could have made in our current like national mental health discussion, in the ways we treat people with mental illness and all of that. And so it's kind of that's a bummer to think about, you know, where we would be without banning those substances. But it's also really interesting to see like what people have done even around those bans, and, you know, in the hope that they will be loosened in the future and they'll be able to be more research and help more people. So yeah, I think that's all for this week. I had a quick one. Would love to know what you're working on, if it's holiday crafting yet or not. I'm still working on sleeves, so I didn't bring anything fun to show this week, but hopefully, I think I'm about halfway done with one sleeve, so maybe I will have next week a full sweater to show you. But I hope that you have a good crafty week, and that it feels like fall if you're in part of the world where it's fall, and feels like spring if you're in the part of the world where it's spring. And yeah, I'll talk to you again soon.